What is sweeter than to have someone with whom you may dare discuss anything as if you were communing with yourself? How could your enjoyment in times of prosperity be so great if you did not have someone whose joy in them would be equal to your own? Marcus Tullius Cicero. All right. Thank you for joining the Sons of Ares, a Red Rising podcast. I'm your host today, Cullen. With me, as always, is Charles and Chris. Today, we have a bit of an interesting show for you. Obviously, at the top, we're going to do our warnings. Spoiler warning, here be dragons for all things and all books. We will do our best to avoid the Book of Lorne, as we normally do, but just be aware. Tread carefully. There are definitely spoilers for all of the series of Red Rising. Also, we do swear, we do talk about adult things, and, you know, there are adult things in the books. If there's something in particular that we think needs a content warning, we will put that in there ahead of time. But for the most part, if you've read the books, then you know what's coming. If you haven't read the books, go and read the damn books. Why are you listening to a chapter crawl of Iron Gold? And if you haven't read Iron Gold, go read the books first and then come back. And then the last last thing we want to say is that this is Pierce Brown's sandbox and we're just playing in it. So we appreciate the effort that Pierce has put into these books. They are his characters and his situations. We do not claim any ownership, although we do have some headcanon that we throw out every now and then. Finally, our howl of appreciation this episode is for the amazing fandom, the artificers, the carvers, the musicians and writers, lurkers, lurchers, and looky-loos on socials. Chuck and Chris and I have gotten into these books over the last few years, and we started the podcast for ourselves so that we could dare discuss anything, as Cicero says, but also as a way to meet other fans. We had no idea after we wrapped RR, or Red Rising, then we did this silly little fake news broadcast, not thinking anyone would be down to be foolish, but man, the Howlers love to look the fool. Howler, Pod, Hail Reaper, Fade to Obsidian, Shark Baits all did Little Man on the Street bits, and the commercials were all amazing and made by the creators on Instagram and TikTok, and they went all out. It was our first moment of looking at each other and being like, well, shit, I guess we are part of a cult now. So today's howl of appreciation goes out to you guys, the fandom. We love you. All right, I want to circle back to the cult thing in a moment, but first, let's just kind of explain the game plan here. Today, we are not continuing the Golden Sun chapter crawl, but we'll be back to that soon enough. Today is a little romp through history, and maybe along the way, we'll find a few points of contact with the books. But first, Pierce, man, what the hell are you doing here?
Lurking, you know, you guys are the new kids on the block. I figured I'd come just make sure everything's up to snuff. You know, we got to have some quality control here.
Yes.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you. Thank you for taking the time to hang out with us.
Brown nosing is not going to get you higher marks, sir.
You got to try.
You got to try.
Not very subtle, I suppose.
It's all good. It's all good. With that beard, you can get away with a lot, you know?
Like
I said, you got a comforting voice. This feels like a comforting, safe environment.
It's a safe space. Well, I don't know if it's a safe space, but it's safe for you.
Appreciate that.
Like I was saying,
gloves, guys. I'm sensitive.
Very, very much so. The cult thing. I've got my dad reading the books. I got my brother reading the books. I've got my brother-in-law, my sister, two other couples that I know. Chuck and Chris have been proselytizing. What was the moment for you that you were like, "Holy shit! This is a full-blown cult that you've created"?
Well, I always had this deep suspicion that I'd found a cult, but I knew that I didn't really have that mentality to really, you know, if I started on Monday, by Wednesday, I'm going to feel alienated by the cult. And, you know, I was always afraid, like, I created this really silly animated TV show once. It was about a cult leader who was really, really successful. But the problem was his cult got way too into it. Too zealous, and so he tried to escape the cult, and so the entire show is about his cult like trying to catch him and bring him back. But it's like, imagine it like a Jesus figure, but now in the modern landscape. He just wants to go to Wyoming and ride horses, you know. And he's tired of turning water into wine. I don't feel that with this group. That's the fun thing. I feel as though, sometimes I get really uncomfortable with the idolization of figures in the modern landscape. It makes sense if you think about demigods and how we revere Alexander the Great, who I look at as kind of the first social media star, and can back up that claim if you guys challenge it. But the thing about the Red Rising group and the Red Rising groups is it feels like we're gathering to celebrate like a secret that we just want to share, and I think that a lot of fan bases get gatekeepery. They like, you don't really appreciating it, or that's not real literature, or I was there from the get-go type thing. And it's natural, because I think that, we all take something that we really like, and it can become part of our personality and can inform us and feels very intimate. And then if it gets too popular, or there's a bad adaptation, or you feel like there's some betrayal by the creator against you personally, and it does feel like it's personal, because, if you love something that much, how could it not feel personal, right? You've given me countless hours, and then you're laying in bed thinking of my characters. Like, I do owe you something, so but it's really interesting, because I think that the core groups, and you mentioned some of the other podcasts, and guys do a great job of keeping I think the ethos of the books alive in the community itself. And I think that parallel is seldom found in fandoms. So, when I said you guys are new kids in the block, I really wanted to say hi, and it was really just kind of wanting to talk about the things that got you guys interested, because you have a different perspective, I think, than some of the other podcasts that I've seen, particularly in some of the classic reading materials you guys have thrown around. And that's near and dear to me. While it's not all of what Red Rising is, it's an important fundamental part of the spine. So I wanted to come over and see this part of the fan group, or the fan base, right? Because each one has a different in. And you're quoting Cicero off the top in the right
Hell
place.
yeah. Hell yeah.
Well, it's definitely an interesting ecosystem. As we've gotten to meet some of the other creators and podcasters in this realm, everybody has their niche, but nobody seems to be like, everybody's just super welcoming, which is, like you said, is rare, not just in fandoms, but like if you're a sports fan or anything like that, there's always that asshole who's like, well, do you remember the 1986 team that lost in the Super Bowl? Well, if you weren't around for that, then you definitely aren't a fan. None of that going on here. One thing that you just said that has my brain ticking is, you're right. Alexander would crush on social media, not just like the thirst traps, but essentially the naming of, what is it, 32 cities or 36 cities. Those are the first tweets. He's basically just tweeting every time he named a city.
He had an astonishing amount of war correspondence, scribes, along with his campaign. He was receiving daily letters from his mother. He one time said that my mother charges an extremely high rent for 9 months in the womb, because she was such a busybody about his affairs. So, this concept of that, because there's far distances, they only had horses, they weren't really communicating. For most of the campaign, he could get a letter home in 3 to 7 days. Right. And imagine that writer's out, then the next writer's out. So he has a steady stream of things coming back, and he's sending war correspondence back, right? Because Alexander had a chip on his shoulder. Philip had created a marvel. Philip had created the first professional army, really, even the first special forces with the Hypastus guys. And so Alexander inherited all this, but then he had to prove it against guys like Parmenion, and Cletus. I think Black Cletus. No, Black Cletus was a buddy of his.
Parmenio and
who's the?
Was it Antiochus?
Who's the suck up? No, there was a suck up who got his daughter married to Philip after Olympias. That guy. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
And Alexander's brother, Alexander, was married, and Olympia killed that kid when Alexander took him.
You got Colin already looking it up. You got him trying to cheat. It's awesome.
Olympias roasted him over the fire. That guy's, well, anyway, that family. So he had a lot to prove to the class of commanders that had, united Macedon and subdued the Greeks and the Illyrians, right? And the Thracians. And
Was it
so,
Antipater?
yes.
Yes.
Yes. And so Antipater, I think, also had a son who was problematic, or Parmenio had a lot of sons. It's been a while.
Yes.
But anyway, point being, Alexander had this ecosystem of veterans who had already done what was unthinkable, conquer Greece. No one had done it. And subdue Greece, much less, that entire kind of Balkans area. And so Alexander's going out and he has to prove himself, right? Yeah, he had the command of the left wing, when he was 16, but this is him. He had to do all these things. So he's needing to prop up his image to keep his, because the only way you really die as a Macedonian king is assassination, right? It's like, if you look at their family tree, it's crazy, right? So he's needing to keep this propaganda up at home, right? But he also loves fame. His idol was Achilles. So everlasting fame is what, he slept with 2 books underneath his bed, right? I bet you guys can name them.
It's the Iliad and what was the other one? It's not Aristotle's.
What was the only map they had, basically?
Herodotus?
Well, Herodotus, but that wasn't what he slept with underneath. They used the Herodotus pass and Herodotus's maps and stuff. Well, he didn't really have maps, but Xenophon's Anabasis.
Oh yes, God damn.
Xenophon's Anabasis, about 10,000 guys.
I'm fucking looking at the landmark Anabasis right now.
I have that entire collection. It's so good, right? But it's he has 2 books. One of them is his manual on how to become a demigod. And the other one is his map,
to do it.
Yeah.
I love too the idea that one of the reasons why he's able to get these letters within 3 to 7 days is actually the Persian infrastructure is so fantastic
I know
that they create the first postal system, and he's just like, yeah, that's a really good idea. We should use the shit out of it.
I like that. Let's just change the crest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This kind of piggybacks to something that Chuck wanted to bring up. Chuck, go ahead and you've got that question you wanted to bring up there.
Well, what I love about going through the books, and this would be my little chance to like fluff up to how your writing is, and props to you. These moments of battle throughout the series that you write, the intensity, the emotion, the pure fear that you can elicit the reader while they're going through chapter by chapter. How you write how the snap of a finger, anyone is liable to be terminated. This isn't a typical series where you have the heroes surviving till the very end. Everyone's on the chopping block at all times. And it makes it real. It makes it completely realistic. And it makes my heart almost jump out of my chest while I'm reading it and remembering things of stuff that I went through myself. Like one of my favorite moments of all time, and I've talked about it probably 50 times to Cullen, is from Dark Age. Dark Age is my favorite book. I just have to throw that out there. But chapter 60, Pup 1, you got Alexander racing on grav bikes to Heliopolis, and he's pleading on the radio, begging for help, for support, a response, anything from Darrow. And you get that feeling of dread. I'm literally shaking while I'm reading this, and it's reminding me of going through a city. And this is what makes this more than any other story. It's how you write this gripping intensity that I have to give you props. I feel like you were in the foxhole with me or in a turret with me, and your ability to make it real is that it's insane. So it's like the idea of like studying history and how it changes. Is this the best way to write into this? Or is it, I always thought if you were going to write this much detail into a battle scene is you had to be there, but I'm not trying to like be rude about it, but it's like you nail it completely to the point where I'm almost crushed and I have to go see my VA shrink afterwards, but it's gripping, and that's a good thing. It's helping me get through my own stuff, Isn't
that the funny thing? And I say funny because I get that comment way more than I thought I would. When I started writing this series, my great insecurity is that I've never been shot at. I'm not saying that I want to be shot at, but it does feel like cosplaying in a bit. And it does feel like and I think I speak for perhaps, or I should speak for everyone who is in a creative field and hasn't had that happen to them, that then our duty is instead to just try to write with as much empathy as possible, not sympathy. I think
Hmm.
sympathy is where good intentions go to die, and you're telegraphing your punches, and then it seems like a lecture. I think that what hopefully makes mine different is that I'm trying my best to capture emotions with words, right? And that kind of thing. But I think it's really like that I am exploring it, and I'm not trying to, I haven't come to a conclusion on a lot of this stuff.
Hmm.
And, and because of that, it allows it to just be, and then you can draw your own conclusions from it, even with the morality of the characters and decisions that they make. And hopefully it makes it feel like I'm not guiding it artificially to create a statement that is
Hmm.
incongruous with reality. And that's what I'm trying to not do, is be incongruous with reality. And I think that anyone who writes about violence has a duty to not be incongruous with reality. I'm not saying you have to show everything. I think some of the most
Hmm.
effective stuff you can do is using your mind. So I kind of have a rule for myself, like for Red Rising, and it's not because of any moral stance, really. It's because I feel as though if I write a sex scene, it'll jeopardize certain elements of the book and certain dignity of characters. If
Right.
I write from certain character's perspective, and I wrote, for Lightbringer, I wrote like 200 and something pages from Sevro's POV, and I realized that I had fucked up, and I had to
Mm.
throw away, a massive chunk of the book, and I literally just threw it away. I didn't go harvest it for parts, threw it
Mm.
away. Um, and I did that because I was Sevro works because he's an enigma, and then showing you how the enigma thinks is going to be different and
Yes.
jeopardize your understanding of him. I am not, I do not presume that I could hit that mark well enough. I might, I
Hmm.
might work on it I might work on it until it's right. But even if I hit it perfectly, it's not going to be what's in people's heads. And
Hmm.
I'm going to then violate that informal contract with the audience, which then you'll feel, when I talked about violation, you can feel violated because you thought you knew who Severo was for maybe 8 or 9 years, right? Um, and then I changed that, and it felt like, no, I can't do that, even if it's going to piss off readers and it's going to be 2 more years writing this thing. I don't want to do that. And it's
Hmm.
not like a moral thing. It's like it makes me nauseous. And it's the same way
Yeah.
with kind of like there's moments where I, save it when I don't kill a character. And I will feel insecure about it. And then finally, like my editor will get to it and he'd be like, why are you pulling punches? Why are you keeping your powder dry?
Hmm.
What are you saving it for? And I'm saving it because of my writing style, because I never know when I'm going to need a character sometimes. Like I
True.
definitely know thematically, I definitely know huge parts of how it starts. I knew from, I mean, how it begins and ends, and it's not like I know specific scenes. I know the emotional frequency I want that, and it's all here, right? And so it's
Yep.
very instinctive. And so the battles and stuff, they're impossible to approach these battles. These battles are
Mm.
millions of people, weaponry, that I don't go into too much detail in, etc. But the reason I decided the first person present tense with Red Rising is because of the complication of the subject matter. If presented in third person omniscient or first person past tense, would have to give you so much information that cognitively it would divorce you from the ability to feel it emotionally. And I thought I think that's been a big flaw in almost every single fantasy show since Game of Thrones, is
Hmm.
they try to get you to invest in 5 characters in different parts of the globe.
Yes. Yep.
And then, as though it's some sort of like great trick, great like amazing culmination when, oh my gosh, all their plot lines affect each other, you know? And I
It's
think
meant to be.
I think that's tomfoolery, because
Yep.
how are you going to cognitively understand this world? First, you have to grasp it, right?
Hmm.
Then you can start to care about it. But if you look at the things that are part of our cultural landscape, Harry Potter, Star Wars, give me another one.
Tolkien.
Lord of the Rings. Yeah.
Lord of the Rings,
Yep.
Shire, Under the Cabinet Privet Drive, Tatooine. They start in the keyhole, right?
Mm-hmm.
And as your character encounters things in the world, you encounter them, right? They're your eyes, they're the beholder. And so I thought that, that very narrow look would allow me to do a sleight of hand, which is I can show these big battles and I can show these things that I've hopefully populated enough along the way that I'm not doing huge info dumps in the battles, that it's about experience. What can Darrow see, with regard to the battle? And I
Mm-hmm.
think that one of the things that's shocked me, and this is just from paintballing, okay? Just from paintballing. One thing that's shocked me is how quickly people who had a plan and everyone
Goes to
agreed on,
shit.
and it's like none of them follow it. And then none of them, like, that's the one uniting thing we have is the plan that was before. That's the only thing that we kind of, but then everyone kind of gets instinctive and tries to flank, and then like it just all falls apart. And you just feel very quickly isolated and alone, even if you're doing everything right. And so it's like I draw from experiences like that. And I think that, okay, with because it comes down to chemistry, like
Mm-hmm.
biochemistry, right? There's a limitation on what you can experience. Your body limits you with shock, with adrenaline,
Oh yes.
right? Like talk about your body when all of a sudden adrenaline hits. Doesn't matter how fucking hydrated you are chalk mouthed, like to
Oh
here,
yeah.
like through, right? You're just a cotton mouthed, right? And
Call it zombie mode.
zombie mode, right?
Yeah.
And so like there's all these hunches I've had, and then I talk to military veterans or people who are active, or I read like firsthand accounts of a like Civil War battle, and it's just people have always been people. Fear has always been fear. The way it is delivered and what we're afraid of, it's just different delivery mechanisms of death, but it's still the same thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yeah,
and the
we
same thing,
recorded. I don't
the
mean to
same.
interrupt, but we
No,
recorded
yeah.
the Iron Rain or an episode about the Iron Rain last night and paired it up with some D-Day firsthand accounts.
Oh, really?
And
I
it's
haven't
like
read any.
pretty shocking how similar. Well, we had a couple quotes about Tarawa, and
Mm,
they line up really almost not word for word, but the emotional thrust of their experience lines up
mhm.
with what Darrow's saying at times in the Iron Rain in a way
Wow.
that's kind of startling.
Yeah, I haven't mind that those firsthand accounts. But I think that might be testament to how it doesn't change, right?
Mm-hmm.
I
100%.
remember reading a letter like from one of the less popular Parthian campaigns that the Romans were waging in the second century, and it was from a letter from back home after there was much discontent back home about the war, and the letter read like a Vietnam War letter, read like an Iraq War letter, um, and it was simply putting to words in a rather disciplined but slightly menacing tone of like, we're out here for you.
Hmm.
Our disgusting hands make you safe and comfortable in Rome. So if beware the men doing your dirty work when they come home and know they were not appreciated. And that feeling of cultural betrayal, I'm like, oh yeah, like I didn't think that they would have that same sort of cultural betrayal, and that's such a unique thing, right? So things like that lead me to believe that the experience is limited to our ability to relate it, limited to our ability to feel it. And so war must feel very similar to what it used to feel like, but it has to feel even stranger because there's an alienation.
Hmm.
I mean, you guys read On Killing.
On
No.
Killing.
You guys got to
No.
read On Killing if you like my
On
stuff.
killing.
Yeah. Faces of Battle.
Yeah.
For
Yeah.
Keegan's one of my favorites.
Yeah, Faces of Battle is astounding. That I got a lot from that for Dark Age, obviously. But On Killing, and they were talking about, they were doing the math on casualties
Oh,
in.
David Grossman. The
Yeah.
the post. Yes.
Yeah, I couldn't have placed his name, but they did basically they did math on the munitions and the weaponry that I think it was maybe Civil War, maybe, but it was a gunpowder age, and they were
Hmm.
saying the casualties should have been 8 times higher, based on the rate of fire, based on the accuracy, based on the volley system, et cetera, and how much lead's in the air. Why was anyone walking away from these battles? And the the assumption was that it's because people, when en masse, in these columns, are not firing to hit. They are
Mm.
actually just aspiring to be part of its normative functioning. They're doing it to be part of the group, right? Because, for a lot of people in a lot of testaments I've heard is it's not bravery, it's fear of shame. Because if your buddy is there and you're a brother to him now, you've gone through things with him. And if he's there, how can you not be there? Like, right? And so for Darrow, Darrow, I obviously couldn't kill in books 1 through 3, right? Or is that too
Mhm.
spoiler? Is that okay?
No, that's fine.
You're
Okay,
good.
so I
Yeah.
can't kill Darrow through all that. So I thought I have to have all my secondary and tertiary characters have a three act structure in their own arcs. So they always have an arc going on, even if it's a small thing. There have to be.
Mhm.
I write it on a post-it note, and it couldn't be larger than that. It would have to be what they wanted at the beginning. What stood in their way of accomplishing that, and sometimes it's their own internal thing, and that's usually when it's best. Some internal contradiction stands in their way, so they either learn to not want the thing because they value their morality, or they sacrifice that thing and fundamentally change. But when they die and I can kill them because they're not my first person present tense narrator, my mission is to feel like how can I create tension in every scene, right? And it's by showing the reality, or at least, of violence, and showing the capriciousness of it, and showing these arcs that you feel in the background happening getting interrupted mid stride. And I think that's what makes it different. A lot of times I see that authors kill people when they're at the end of their arc,
Mhm.
and I don't think that accurately illustrates the trauma of death. Uh,
No.
if you, the most fucked up thing for death for me is going into someone's room and seeing all the clothes that have no meaning.
Oh yeah.
Mm.
You know, encountered that in high school a few times. It was really tough, and I had a lot of death in my life for like a 3-year period in high school, just an inordinate amount of it. And I didn't see, I did have a friend like die in front of me, and it's not combat, but I have to imagine that it haunts in a similar
Oh,
way,
it's powerful.
because
Yeah.
all I was thinking about, and the only thing I relived is that my friend ran into the street. I could have reached out and grabbed him. I could have. I thought about it, but I didn't. Now
Mhm.
I did not know that was going to happen, right? That you get hit, but I relived it
The
could have been
what
like
ifs.
that. It could have been like that, right?
Yep.
And there's no fault there, but it could have been different.
Mm.
And it's that I relive all the time. And then I was reading accounts of PTSD, and I think it's the thing about, like, we always talk about death and stuff like that, but my guess is that war is so psychologically traumatizing in its own way because it is proof and testament of how fucking small you are.
Mhm.
Here you are with years of training, the best equipment you can have, the best military that's ever existed, the most coordination that's ever existed, the most down the line care for troops that's ever existed, 90 times what Russians get. And you still are small and alone and made of
Yes.
meat.
Yep.
And nothing else is made of meat. Everything else is moving at 17,000 kilometers a second, and it's made of hard, like titanium and steel, and it's crazy. And it
I
has to
feel
feel like it.
I
Does
feel
it
like
feel
a
like
lot
complete
of that
alienation?
I'm just gonna say, I feel like a lot of that, like you're mentioning, it came through for me in Lightbringer, in that internal dialogue that Darrow is constantly battling with, because you live through experiences most of the time. It's in the moment. It's a reactionary. You're just trying to survive, but it's your body, your brain processing what the hell just fucking happened, and your mind twisting it and making it worse. And that's the worst case of PTSD. And you're nailing it as far as the books go. I mean, Lightbringer is number
Thank
2
you.
for me, but yeah,
Well, I'm
just to
learning as
feed
I
off of what
go.
you're saying.
I appreciate it. Learning as I go, and these are all hunches of mine based on aggregating a lot of things. And I hope I'm never seeming like I'm telling someone their experience, because that
No.
is that is exactly why I look at what the compliment you gave me as the ultimate compliment, really,
Hmm.
because it was my greatest insecurity in writing this series. So thank you. I'm so glad it connected.
Oh, hell yeah.
One of the
I get
things that
actually nervous talking about this stuff because
I mean, it makes sense. It must be a fear to have that potential of putting something out there that you think is going to connect, and then have it just not be accepted the way you intended.
And
But
And that can
you got
happen.
if
that's the risk.
I just want to say, so this going through things years ago, getting out 15 plus years ago, and then going into my own shell, trying to deal with things, just to give you a perspective on how your writing has infected me. So I don't know about anyone else. We're all different. We're all
Mhm,
messed up in
mhm.
different ways. But I almost regressed into a shell. And then reading through this series and then talking with Cullen again about it and then talking with Chris about it. And then the idea of doing our own podcast, none of that would have happened if it wasn't through actually reading through your books, feeling a connection, and then talking more with my own, doctors or whatnot. And then it's like, well, here we are. And now here I am talking to you. So it's insane.
It's a very
So
odd
I
world.
appreciate that, man. I gotta imagine that. I can't imagine. I can't imagine the culture shock of coming back and not being able to communicate.
yeah.
How could you communicate? Why would it even be worth it to try when you can't even the language doesn't allow for you to like articulate? Maybe
And
that's my hunch.
they break you down to the point where you're supposed to be basically a robot. You're not supposed to
Mhm,
think for yourself. That's
mhm.
where maybe in paintball, or like to use that comparison, we're
Yeah,
not supposed to have eternal thoughts
no
anymore.
one
So
there had
we're
been
all we
humbled.
have. Yeah, exactly. So you need to break them down enough where they're no. This is the plan. You stick to the fucking plan, or you're done. And and then when you get out of that lifestyle and try to you know immerse yourself back into normal life, that's the switch that you have to figure out how to turn off or to reintegrate back into society. And that's been the most difficult for me. And it almost twists back every time I see an old friend or somebody from the old unit. It flips it, and it's like shit. I don't want to go back to that. So it's still a constant battle.
But you're doing a hell of a job. You're
Well, I
really doing a hell
appreciate
of a
it.
job, man.
Man, thanks for sharing with us, man.
Yeah.
One thing that we kind of have touched on a little bit as we cover the earlier books, what's it like to have written kind of predictive battlefield experiences?
Oh yeah.
You've got drones playing quite a
Oh,
extensive role
it's
in
actually
Iron
it's super
Gold.
weird now because
Golden Sun.
stuff that I was employing that was novel to me and
Hmm.
I had not sought the real world for inspiration is now very much real world stuff. Like,
Yeah.
Totally.
in Dark Age, I'm taking. Here's the thing: I'm not trying to predict the future. I'm just chasing things to their logical conclusion.
Yeah.
Um, and one of the things is like how quickly the tip of the spear gets blunted in sustained engagement. Like when they're in Dark Age, yeah, okay, you got all this fantastic technology, but it kind of comes down to the AK-47 sometimes. Like for a lot of it, it
Yep.
comes down to look at our teams guys who were on mules, right?
Yep. Yeah.
Like, and
Use
there's
what
a
you
lot of
got.
complications with having mules and deployed or rented.
Mhm.
Um,
Yes.
Commandeered.
Yeah, I was gonna say
yes,
commandeered,
yes.
borrowed.
Heard some interesting stories.
Not for
um,
now.
yeah, not for now. But the reality of that is I'm not like predicting that. That's what happens.
Yeah.
And it's the same way with like like drone swarms. Drone swarms are obviously going to play into I don't think it's a spoiler to say it would play into Red God, because the society has had a prejudice against AI and a prejudice against non-human combat
Mhm.
because the golds, are trapped in this delusion. And societies do that all the time. Look at what it takes for us to go to the moon. We
Yeah.
don't go to the moon unless we have a geopolitical competitor. We
Yeah,
don't
true.
do
Right.
anything unless we're like forced to, right? So we had there has never been a country that has had the dominance over the world like America did from the time we launched, like we landed on the moon to the time, I don't know, uh a 40-year chunk of time, however you want to
Mm.
define it. We could say when the wall fell, etc., right? But we had unfettered economic dominance over the world. We had a GDP like that. You guys know the stats. and we didn't go to the moon, right?
Yeah.
We need sometimes that outside influence. The Golds haven't had an outside influence. They've done their damnedest to make sure they don't, right? And so they've ossified. And so it's constant evolution. It has to be constant evolution, right? And nothing drives like ingenuity and development like existential threat, right? Like existential threat to either, politically for the United States or even like for for the gold regime, right? And so you're going to see all these technologies increasing. But what I love about like the kind of wonk in me likes likes the tic-tac-toe of it all, or the rock paper scissors of it all, right? I like thinking it was rock paper scissors, but like Russian nesting dolls too. So it's like there's layers of it.
Okay.
And so no one thing, like, because otherwise the answer would always be nuke it from orbit, right? So I think that having, nuking from orbit, there has to be real reasons from either from a resource standpoint, economic, political, or even personal. Best if it's all of those things to not do that, but also create some like reasons why that technology doesn't just beat everything, right? Like shields, right? I've often seen shields. Shields are used in all sci-fi, right? What I thought though is that shields almost didn't deny in these big battles. You're trying to find the how to say the choke point. The is that the best word?
Or the weak points.
No, the point where the battle will be decided, the decisive place, like
inflection,
turning
inflection.
point.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I didn't
Chris
sleep last
with
night.
the win there. Very nice.
Thank
Chris.
you.
I'm good at
He
words.
comes in
I'm
when
good
we
at
need
words.
him. Comes in when we need him. I need an assistant to help me write this book. It's like, what was the word? Yes.
Done.
Oh man,
That's interesting though. You've hit on two things that I think are really I had never thought of. Is the Golds really have bought into the Fukuyama end of history mentality, where it's like this is it from here on out. Nothing will
We are
happen.
the sum of humanity.
We bought in.
we are
United
the sum of
States.
humanity, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Right. And so they froze it. But anyway, the for shields, I wanted the shields to be, there's a 100-meter or 10-meter gap, 100-meter gap from the ground. Otherwise, seismic events occur, and then you have a collapse of the shield, and it's terrible, and everything blows up. Dune uses that kind of same thing, same principle of why you can't always have shields in the desert. The worms will come, etc. There's like, they do that in sci-fi, the rock, paper, scissors. I'm not creating that. But what I wanted was, I grew up playing every iteration of Total War. You guys ever play that video game?
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I love.
Dude, I saw it in PC Gamer 1998, 1999, and I bought it, and I did nothing else.
I would give my left nut right now to go back and play Medieval Total War 2 for like 5 days. No doubt.
Medieval crack.
I just Age of Empires. I didn't mess too much into Total War.
I love Age of Empires. I love Age of Empires. Total War, that's
you had the strategy and the tactical. It was the best combination.
If we put as much time into like our personal finances as we did into managing our empires.
Oh my God.
I don't know why I can't make my brain work with, I can focus for 14 hours and get up once to pee playing that game.
Totally. And I still am terrified of unrest and the Mongols. They're just always there at the last minute.
I'm sick and tired of their lazy AI. They just allow them to create these full stack armies when they
massive
don't have
armies out of
to
nowhere.
do it. Yeah, I'm literally raised that city, and now it has like the phalangites of Alexander's left nutsack, who are like you can.
That's
it
a
takes
historical
like 5 turns
term
to produce.
there.
Yeah. Like, and it can just produce so many, and I'm just dealing with the Zerg rush, and this is bullshit.
Well,
Zerg rush, but they're all Protoss. That's bullshit.
The thing that you're highlighting is that Total War did a bad job of this, that you're doing a very good job of, which
I hope so.
history has over and over, which is that really crazy balance between the offensive and defensive in warfare, where all of a sudden you have, mounted armored soldiers and they can lay waste to a battlefield real quick, especially once you find a crack and guys start to turn around, then that's when the bloodletting really begins.
And I think Ajax brought that to the fray in Dark Age, and you start getting to see
totally.
that. Oh, these guys are mounted cavalry. They're this iron column rolling across the desert at 500 miles an hour, peeling off as they go. You know, like 12 go that way, 12 go. And you're just like, that is fucking hard to stop, right?
Nigh on impossible.
Stop, right? How do you stop that? You know, and especially when you're not as equipped as the Reds are, right? As the Rising is. The Rising has to use different systems, right? They have to have combined arms fire. They have to have tiered takedowns. You know, they can't just solo everyone.
No.
You know,
but you've created like the Red Swarm. You know, that's a counterbalance in a way that you do read it and you're like, a gold could kill all the Reds in every town they go into, unless all of a sudden they go, you know, literal red and just swarm them just to hold their legs down for a gray to take a shot, knowing that they're all going to die. Like,
how do sheep kill a lion?
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Home numbers.
And I fundamentally believe pretty much anyone can kill almost anyone at any time, right? That's why power is so interesting to me. Like, yeah, you might be the most powerful man in the room, but if your barber doesn't like you,
exactly,
you might be the most powerful man in the world, but if your barber doesn't like, if your cook doesn't like you,
anything's possible.
If they have power to end your life, you know, and I love playing with the people that know that and respect that and how they treat that differently, you know, like at Lysander wrestling with, you know, his question of fear or love, you know, but on the battlefield, it's really fun to play because you get to see things put to the test, right? Darrow's line of saying, I would die for the truth that all men are created equal, right? But in our own world, we are endowed with equal rights, but we are certainly not created equal. If we were created equal, shit, you know, I'd be a downhill skier and in the NBA, you know. I love those things. Those are really fun. I don't like basketball. I think it's a flawed game, but because only the last 2 minutes matter.
2 minutes matter.
And that last 2 minutes is the worst type of play of any sport. So it's like, if it's a close game, the last 2 minutes are just gonna suck, in my opinion. Unless you like the free throw.
I was just
gonna say,
you lost a portion of your fan base.
That's okay. That's okay. You know,
it's not peak 90s NBA anymore. We're well beyond that.
I loved.
Yeah,
I mean, I've spent too many hours watching Larry Bird highlight reels on
Larry
Twitter.
Bird. Oh man, I love Sean Kemp. Sean Kemp and Garrett Payton. Those two on team were so fun to watch. Oh my god. Yeah. Man, and there was Sonics. Like, Seattle was exotic to me. You know, I was in like Midwest and Texas, and like Seattle was like this fabled land, and they had green jerseys, and then Sean Kemp had that flat top
and grunge. You know, it was the coolest place in the 90s, I think.
Oh yeah, I love 90s basketball. It's totally different though. Those guys are just bodying each other. There's no prima donnas. They're like just
it's real basketball.
Yeah.
This is if you like basketball history, Loose Balls is a fantastic read. It's about the ABA.
Balls?
Yeah, it's just how Wild West it was in the ABA.
Loose, what's it called? Loose balls?
Loose balls, yeah.
Okay. I just want to be very specific. I get it right because the Google search.
Yeah. Don't Google that. Do not Google that.
Maybe append that with basketball while you're searching.
Oh, and I know these guys. They were Alexander's other bodyguards. Yeah.
Took us a second.
Yeah.
One of the things that I particularly love, and I know Charles and Chuck agree, is the kind of morally gray spaces. We live in those spaces, and we don't like to think about it that way. I don't think we like to think about it very often. You know, I think Ephraim is one of my favorite characters. Atlas is not one of my favorite, but he's one of the most thought-provoking characters. And Publius
he's fun, wasn't he?
Was it Caravel? Who's the Brown, right?
I'm sorry, say it again.
Publius Caravel.
Publius Caravel, yeah.
Yeah. So he has that line of just touching back on what you were just getting at, is where all men are created equal, and I'm gonna make them that way. I think that honestly, that might be the most devastating line in the whole series.
No one's ever
for
brought
me.
that one up.
I read it and was like, holy shit, that's the most dangerous man on the chessboard right there. Somebody with that is like crazy.
Do you recognize the original quote? It's changed a little bit.
Is it a Stalin quote?
No. It's a guy who made a handgun quote. Or it's about that. It's about the handgun.
Who? What? I'm so
Okay, I
deeply
can't remember the
embarrassed.
exact wording. Look up Samuel Colt, and Samuel Colt made men equal. I think that I don't want to butcher the phrasing.
Get them all perked up.
Yeah. Google search. I think this is where it comes from. My
I
I'm
head.
going
got
through
it.
like Smith and
I don't
Wesson.
think I
and
made
Hand-
this.
I got, yeah.
God made man. Sam Colt made them equal.
Yes, that quote.
I
And-
mean,
That's awesome.
And
it
that one
slaps,
chilled
but
me.
it's also
I read that when I was
crazy.
like 16, and I was like, "Fuck!" And then that stuck my, and it just I pulled it out of the gumbo, you know.
Yeah.
And then it was like, "That's obviously like what a crazy line for, you know, of any ideologue to say."
Truly, it's it's the most dangerous idea, I think, or one of them in the
No
whole
matter
series.
what his persuasion is, no one should say that.
Never. Actually, while we're on quotes there, I got to know the endure speech. I'm a huge Churchill guy. I'm sitting next to a
Yeah.
whole bunch of Churchill.
Oh yeah.
You were pulling straight. I know I know Mustang and Daxo have a moment where they kind of reference it, and she has this great quote. People have changed, or times have changed, but people haven't. Why should the speeches? But were you also using some Lincoln in there? There's a better Angels line that I think. Okay, good. I thought I was making it up in my head.
No, I looked at figures that I thought Virginia would respect.
Gotcha.
And I mined some of their sentiments. Some of the diction is particularly early part of the speech, if I remember correctly, is Lincoln. And then Churchill on the kind of like the bridge to the close. The we'll fight them, from the, the dust plains of Mars or whatever.
Yep.
Some quotes I remember perfectly. Other ones I did so many iterations of. I'm like, what did I settle on? Like the Victor quote, the pity them one. I could just recite that all day.
Dude, that's one of the fucking coolest. I love that line. I love Victra, but man, that line is sick.
That one, I like, I stood up from the computer and I walked away like Eminem at the end.
Rightfully so.
Yeah, that one,
so.
I was very much like, it's working.
Yeah.
Other ones, you're like, I hope it works.
That's funny. That's great.
And this is important too, because Cullen, as we do our recaps going through your chapter by chapter, Cullen likes to point out and be like, I think this is where he's coming. Yeah. This is where I think Pierce is going with this, and this is my idea. So just for you to confirm a handful of these right now.
And
it's pretty awesome.
And
I know
do
he's
it
cheerful.
I do not claim to have inside knowledge. I don't know anything from anything. We are not scholars by any means. It's
but that's okay. Like I'm operating on hunches, and you guys are operating on hunches when you're reading. It's instinct, and not be correct, but I think we're coming hopefully with the proper humility, so it's fine. It's like I like it if like for me it's really rare for like some of the deep cuts to be seen. So when you call them out, I'm like, oh my gosh, I planted that 9 years ago. No one's brought it up, and I am so tickled pink that you thought of that. Like one of my favorite ones is Atalantia referring to her favorite Roman strawberry. And
I'm a Colleen McCullough guy, so like as soon as I read that, I was like, oh, okay, that's
exactly
Sulla.
it.
Of course, that's Sulla.
And I think Sulla is one of the most compelling figures in all of Roman history.
Totally.
And that line he has, like on his epitaph.
Yeah.
No friend ever did me right, or like, and no enemy did me wrong, who I did not repay in kind. And in full. That's his quote.
Brilliant.
This guy settled business and then retired to the country.
And
crazy,
and led like an insane life before he even became, to be like Marius's sidekick essentially, and then to have the chutzpah to be like, you know what, I could do this better than the guy who's basically, I think he was 9 times consul. He wins 2 massive. Anyhow,
crazy.
I just
and just disagrees with him. Like
totally.
just thinks, and like if we're to believe Colin McCullough, which I kind of do based on Marius's actions, because he seemed very wrapped up in his own ego. I think that hayseed thing, that insecurity from being from the countryside and being the outsider, just made him fucking chronically insecure.
Which it did to Cicero too, so we know for a fact that it definitely had that effect on somebody.
Right,
it could.
Right. And I don't think Sulla would have risen were he not so irritated by how irritated Marius was with him coming back with Jugurtha.
Well, and you kind of hit on this on another interview that I'd watched recently, where it's like we often underplay that idea of the annoyed non-professional who just is like, you know what, they're not doing it right. They're not doing that right, or they're not doing it justice, and I can do that. And how
Or
important that idea is a
or
motivating factor.
or personal umbrage. Look at that White House Correspondents' Dinner and tell me that is
that's the greatest example of that. I mean,
dude, that is a man assigning his life to vendetta.
We could go further. One thing that I did,
but that just shows you that humans have always been human. These are the same things. But imagine the political discourse on the rostrum in Rome, where all your competitors have gone to Rhodes and done 2 years of rhetoric, right? They're midway up the cursus honorum. They've all held posts. They've all been lancers, aide-de-camps on fields of battle, or at least been in the administration bureaucracy, right? It is a competitive game of what are those fish that kill each other when they're in the
the Japanese
betta fish.
Oh,
there you go.
yes.
Chris.
Again, Chris.
I actually have a few of those, but yeah.
He has a few. Oh,
That's amazing. Because they're kind of like, pit bulls in a way, and I don't mean that in like pit bulls are, pit bulls reflect their training and master and upbringing. I love pit bulls, but at the same time, you look at the construction of a pit bull and they evoke something. You look at the construction of the beta fish, they evoke something. The golds are why I find Roman history so interesting from 132, from like, what is it, the Gracchi brothers, like 132, 135, 137 to 31 BC to Actium is so fucking cool because they're all playing within the same arena, the same rules, the same expectations, the same pressures, the same vulnerabilities of being out of office, right? And, when you're out of office, you're subject to, done with consul, you can be prosecuted. And they're all just waiting there, licking their chops. What does that remind you of? Right? It's not any different. Trying to use the courts, as a tactic to seem like you're the valid, and whether you are or not. Using the courts as a mechanism to go after your political rivals is as old as, Rome, at
as
least.
courts.
Greece, as old as we are, right? And so then seeing these beta fish, all in the same ecosystem and pond, fighting with the same rules, no technological advances over each other, like the longbows. Longbows is like, it's crazy advanced in technology. The Mongols are essentially all, Apache helicopters compared to who they're fighting, right? The Vikings are like 250 years of like of sea tech and cultural technology, basically, of like their culture has they might have a smaller population, but they're operating as though they have twice as many men because their women are guarding and running Gattaca and like their places back home, right?
They've got force multipliers all over.
They have force multipliers in culture, like in their sociology, in their technology. They didn't even know for hundreds of years where the Vikings fucking came from.
I know. Imagine that just out of the mist, a longboat unloads just crazy fucking.
And it's because your boats can't get across that damn North Sea. Not that you even know where like it ends, because you get there and it's just damn rocks, right? So like, but I love, and I think you guys will like this stuff too. Like I was just talking to my mom about this. She was like talking about why does Scandinavian to have such a great record with female leaders and progressivism? Like, why were they so far ahead of the Western world? My kind of pet argument is that surviving contact with the Western world as a tribal entity is almost impossible.
Totally.
In my mind, there's only really two that have thrived, and I would say King Kamehameha is responsible for why the Hawaiians were able to do this, and then the Norse were able to have this progressive and interesting structure because they had such a closed ecosystem, so rape was extremely prosecutable and enforced, like within Viking civilization, because the entire civilization breaks down. Like it's an existential threat if someone's allowed to rape a woman back home when the men are away, right? It breaks down the entire tribal cohesion. So that is an enemy of the state there. And by necessity, we're talking about invention, right? Earlier, we invent when we're pressured. The Vikings had to to survive because Viking's a verb, right?
Yep.
Viking's a verb. So their culture is the act that they do. They cannot Viking if they cannot trust the home front to be safe,
Totally.
right? So how could it's a chicken egg scenario? Did they trust their women first, or did they say good luck with the kingdom and then it turned out fine? You know what I mean? But the proof was there from a very original level, but it gave them an immense ability to have like cohesion, unity, and to operate like a fist, right? As opposed to a bunch of scattered hands, you know? And you look at all these different reasons of why they were, these cultures won. Of course the Mongols were going to fucking win. You know, as soon as they were united, game over. You know, uniting them, that takes like a warrior shaman. That's crazy. But once they're united, are you kidding me? Like, what can anyone do? Like, at all?
Literally nothing.
But in Rome, they were all operating on a flat playing field. And it's just, that's where you get to see the personalities evolve. That's where you get to see it. And that's what really inspired the kind of gold rivalries back and forth, right? And that's why Darrow is meant to be so confusing, because he's cosplaying as them, but doesn't have the same normative function they do. He doesn't have the same framework, right? And because he doesn't have the same framework, he's not going to make the same assumptions. And when you're not making the same assumptions, you see all the assumptions they've made that is just considered normal. And they are not, like, it's like a lot of times in math equations, from what I've read, and this may not be true anymore, but what I read is like the problem's at the beginning. It's an assumption you made is why the thing, all of this works, but you've made an assumption of like a small thing that's held to be true. And it's because of that assumption that you just assumed it to be true. You're going to spend years and years trying to solve this part and then realize this is the problem. And so that's why Darrow is able to exploit that really well. And I think you can see that with like Alexander. You know, Darius was completely confused by his style of warfare. He's going to, let's look at Gaugamela. Is it Gaugamela? Yeah.
Gaugamela.
Draws the entire wing out.
Yep.
I forget what that maneuver's called, but draw the wing out, extend the line, and then drive the companion cavalry down the seam that it's created, just straight towards Darius, right? No one did a horse charge in the middle of a formation. They didn't have heavy cavalry.
Well,
it wasn't a maneuver.
Didn't he like practiced that, which is crazy to me, at Chaeronea. Like 10 years earlier, he has this idea, and he like pegs it in the back of his mind and is like, at some point, this worked pretty well. We can refine it and make it more effective. But at some point, I'm going to use this in a moment. And then he finds the fucking moment. It's unbelievable.
He was testing his hunch. The hunch worked against the Sacred Band. Worked really well, and then he just applies it, and it's actually probably easier to apply it there than it was against the Thebans, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, just the mass of the Persians makes it somehow, he's turned their strength on its head, and it becomes an actual weakness in the Persian force.
How confusing is communication on a modern battlefield? Now think about 250 different tribes that subjugated tribes the Persians have drawn on, all with different tech, all with different styles of fighting. I mean, the Persians were gonna lose. Now, that Alexander chose to make it so decisive, that is crazy shit. Like, that he risks everything, being at the spear. Like, I mean, you guys know the companion cavalry: 1 guy, 2 guys, 3 guys. And Alexander's the 1 guy with Black Cletus here, and I forget who's on this other side. And it's how could another king who's been raised like a god think that another king would do that? He has so much to lose. Like, but he could
everything.
Yeah,
literally everything.
Right,
and it's and not just once. He does it over and over, which goes to the idea of, he must have truly believed he was. It can't have all been propaganda. He must have really bought into the Achilles connection, the God connection there.
You know what they say he did every morning? He did a prayer to Zeus, sacrificed a goat or something equivalent every morning, which is like a meditation. It's a meditation, but he didn't. My guess is he wasn't saying to Zeus. He was saying father.
Father. Yeah, that makes sense.
It's my guess. I don't know that for a fact.
No, but it makes total sense. And as you're talking, I'm thinking Parmenio really reminds me of a mix of Lorne and Harnassus. There's like
I like
this,
that.
this kind of
not intended, but I like that. It wasn't.
They have the same kind of effect on Darrow of like, well, I wouldn't do that, and well, I wouldn't if I were Parmenio either. That kind of mentality is what you see a lot of in Heliopolis.
Yeah. And also, like, if if you're raised to the top, you're built to think of insulation as entitlement. Like, you're entitled to insulation. Alexander, we talked about bravery, right? Like, Alexander grown up with all the companions. Like, they knew everyone's capability. They had that, that in many ways was like a team. Like the teams, or spec ops, right? Except way more intense because they'd known each other since they were like 8, and how can you not be brave in front of them? So it's like Alexander putting himself at the front is a demand that everyone is as brave as him. And no one can be as brave as him because he's at the front. So you're always trying harder, right, to get a baseline. And it's psychologically makes so much sense.
We want to be respectful of your time.
I'll go another 30 with you.
Oh, well, thank you. That's awesome.
I'm having fun.
I have one thing I wanted to get to, and then eventually Chris will have a question. But
he's doing great. He's doing great as he is. Yeah.
He's the MVP of the whole fucking thing. So we talked about this idea of the gray matter not changing, everything else, and you kind of hit on it, and you can see it throughout history. There are these fantastic photos of bombs being dropped in Vietnam and World War II that say like "fuck you, Tojo," or to Happy Christmas, Hanoi, or whatever. And then you see the little lead bullets that slingers in ancient Judea were slinging that would say like, "fuck your mom last night," or here you go,
my friend
tiny
sent me
dick.
that on Instagram, and I didn't know those existed until like a couple months ago.
There's a stone of I'll try and find the link for you, but there's a stone that's in the Sinai Peninsula, and it's graffiti covered from ancient Egyptian armies, British armies, Roman armies, all these guys. And
that is so funny.
The two jokes that are most commonly,
so it must be like on a
it's a major throughway for the it's a conquering path. The major jokes on it are dick jokes and fart jokes. So our sense of humor is exactly the same. The brain has not changed.
No.
So my question to you, and this is something we see a lot in history, we talk about it, where like ancient Rome, Cato and Cicero are talking about returning to a version of Rome that was more conservative. Let's go back to the halcyon days of the real Rome, the Rome that was. We see it now. We've seen it, in the 50s. We saw it, this return to a version of the nation or state or whatever.
It's a hallmark of conservatism everywhere.
What were the Golds ever actually shepherds? Did the society actually work the way that Lysander has convinced himself, or is this a version of the propaganda that he has bought wholehearted, or maybe he knows it's not? I'm trying to decide for myself, or if it's in your head or whatever, if that was the case, because then it creates the question of if it actually does work and it works the way that they say, can you justify a violent rebellion that costs millions and millions upon millions of lives? If a couple of tweaks to that system actually does provide what he's claiming it could.
Love the question. Can't give you a specific answer, but I can give you my thought process. My thought process, like, Red Rising came about in a culmination of things. I was reading Antigone. I just read Antigone. I had been reading Plato. No, I'd been reading Aristotle, and then I got reminded of Plato because I thought there was something about Philosopher Kings that was compelling based on something Aristotle says. So I went back into Plato and got my dog-eared copy from high school and saw how dumb I was in high school. I think I was just highlighting to get because the teacher would go through, because I was reading Game of Thrones. You know what I mean? So I was in my big fantasy sci-fi kick. Like I read, I don't know, everything that I could find, in a very, I like had a syllabus. I was going through it, you know, and so, but then I found myself back to, it was Hyperion, Dan Simmons's book
Oh,
that got me thinking
so
about Greece and Rome again, or Greece again. And so then I went back and started reading the plays because there's so many great, you know, Canterbury Tales is obviously what Hyperion's based on, but there's a lot of amazing Greek references and stuff like that in there. So I went back to try to edify myself and found the Philosopher Kings. And in it, you know, the Plato's Republic is a conversation between imaginary, you know, guys or philosophers who are challenging, you know, a thesis of you know the main of Plato, basically his stand-in, and in it they're trying to find out what the, you know, the proper form of government is for a city state, and they go through all of them, and they're not so kind about democracy for a lot of reasons that are very valid. Um, and they decided that you know, a benevolent monarch is basically the best form of government, right? But how do you institutionalize a benevolent monarch? You create and draw from your populace people based on merit. So it's a pure meritocracy, right? And the pure meritocracy is just basically means to you know, men of iron, you know, are will be warriors for us. The men of silver will mine the coin, but the men of gold are interior. Then they can come from any walk of life. Will be trained in the humanities, trained in what it means to be human, mathematics, and all these things, and they will, as kind of an oligarchy almost, you know, but like chosen by the people, rule over the people. So it's educated. It's an educated Politburo, kind of, right? Because that's how you institutionalize you know, a benevolent monarch. That's the hope, right? You teach the values of philosophy, the values of prudence, all these great values, and then they're supposed to select amongst themselves the best, right? Okay, great, cool, but you know, I started looking at any form of government ends up, in my mind, turning into an oligarchy. I think every form of government does.
totally.
And so I said the same thing would happen with this, and it happens because, you know, a small educated group of people will almost always defeat an uneducated or uninformed majority. That's what the game Mafia was created to show.
I was just going to say,
right?
the
So
Mafia game, yep.
right? The only time really that the town wins is when you play with people a lot and you start, like, you know, being better at the game. Then you can suss it out. But if you're playing with a group of people that don't really know each other, the town almost never wins. And it's because trust is difficult, right? And when you know something, you're united by a secret advantage, and you're going to protect that advantage, right? But if you are united only in the suspicion you're being duped, or united in violation, it's really hard to collaborate because you're not protecting. I mean, one, you're the majority, so even if you like, if you go to war, if you rebel, but then, you know, your neighbor Chad stays home, you know, shagging the people left over on the block, and you die being brave and risk everything, and Chad gets the benefit when Chad didn't do anything, but there's nothing pressuring Chad to do it. You know, if Chad's in a small group, he's pressured to do it because there's a degree of well, you got to do it, you know, because we know, you know, and if you don't do it, we're just gonna, you know, the consequences are pretty immediate. But it's kind of the same thing about that volley fire I was talking about. The volley fire early on, they found out that most people don't want to kill someone else, particularly when there's anonymity. It's kind of like the opposite of the internet. It's like, right? So, but the groupthink is you're pretending like you are, but the problem is everyone else is assuming that everyone else is killing to shoot, killing to aim. But they were estimating crazy numbers, and I don't want to talk out of my ass, but it was something like 50, 60%. They were saying we're trying not to hit the person. They were shooting over their heads.
And I think to piggyback on that, the Grossman book, I think he's talking about that he covers that in World War II too. Like there was
World
some
War
like
I, World
60% of the guys fired their weapon, but not actually with an intent to hit anything or anyone.
Oh, it's crazy. Like, what is it like? It's like 1 million bullets per one that hits someone.
Crazy.
That were some of the. That's a ballpark figure, but it's crazy like that in that war. So they were trying to figure out, how do we make people kill better in the American military? And sadly,
through a screen,
they discovered the kind of secret sauce in the Vietnam, or sorry, in the World War II theater, the accuracy of people in the Pacific Front was way better than on the European theater, because they look different.
Yep.
Because they speak and have different culture, speak different language, have different culture. You don't recognize that they're alien, right? Black Mirror did a great episode where they have, these guys are killing zombies or monsters or whatever, and it turns out that they're just like refugees. But it's like these implants that turn them into the target, right? But that's what we do, and we do it strategically, right? We used to when it was conscripts and stuff. It's a bit different now. The intentionality of people joining is different in a volunteer army. But in a conscript army, it was extremely difficult. And so they did it by basically, painting them as the other. And it was really effective, like really effective. And so I tried to employ things like that into Red Rising as well. But the reason I brought it up is the volley fire. What was I connecting it to? My brain, I didn't sleep last night, so my brain's
no worries. Whether or not the Golds were ever actually the shepherds that they claim to be.
And so everyone is like, when you're in like a big group, everyone's assuming that someone else will step up, When you're in a small group, there's a responsibility to protect the small group. So the Golds will be much more prone to acting and doing something and protecting what's theirs, as opposed to rebels rising up and wondering, is it worth it? I have and I think that's part of capitalism is like, and I really fundamentally believe this. Capitalism is a really, 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 really good thing to stop a rebellion, because capitalism provides bounty. Capitalism provides a lot of reasons not to go to war, not to risk everything, because life, even if it's unfair, is pretty fucking good, right? Yeah. If you measure it against the standard of living that in the world, really, if you measure the standard of living against people in time, it's pretty good to be even like it's pretty good. Now, relative to other people, what other people have, perhaps not in the society, but are you going to go to war because you're jealous of someone having something and you think that's unfair, but you have a home, you got, your kids can eat, you can eat, that's not a concern, right? And that keeping people in like a limbo, if it's not worth it to rebel, I think is far more effective than any military force. So it incentivizes status quo. So I felt that the Golds would just pervert the system like anything else, because power gets fucked up. And I look at Marcus Aurelius for this. Marcus Aurelius, right, the wokest man in all of Rome, right? And I mean that in terms of he was extremely, extremely progressive, right? And extremely conscious about power, extremely conscious about philosophy and where he stood in things, and how small his share of time on Earth is, and also how powerless he is as the most powerful man in the world, right?
Yeah.
And he leaves it to Commodus. He leaves it to Commodus, a psychopath who had fought 740 times in the arena. Not once, 740 times. What? That's like giving the presidency to like Logan Paul,
Well, we found the TikTok clip. That's
gave it to the thirstiest guy out there, you know what I mean? And it's like, that's the prudence of a father, you know what I mean? And so that's the prudence with which Golds would pass down their even if they had a great idea at the beginning, how quick is it going to get perverted because people like giving shit to their kids?
I think that answers the question
Long
no, but
answer.
it does.
We
It
got
gets to the meat of it, the meat of the thing. Well, we could keep going and asking these kind of questions, but
let's do 10 minutes and I can boogie.
Okay, we've got a quick round that we want to hit. We've each got a couple of questions here.
Cool.
Carthago delende est. Is that the root for Mars Must Fall?
Yeah, of course.
Thank God. That was keeping me up at night.
Yeah, I'm telling you, you're making his day.
Yeah.
Lysander, I have a pet theory that this is his arc. Iron Gold is fear, Dark Age is honor, and Lightbringer is interest. The argument Thucydides makes that states and people all act out of fear, honor, and interest. Am I anywhere near the mark with that?
Yeah.
Maybe not, Chuck. Maybe I fucked up.
No. The structure's correct. My conclusion might not be.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Because again, I like the little twist, right?
Mm.
And like I think like Plato was on the money with like breaking shit down, but just as flawed as everyone else because he's dealing with a flawed creature. Uh, so it's like yeah, I love that logical the framework of it. But I think that one could also make the case that Lysander was learning a great deal about fear
Mm.
in the second book. So it's an inspiration, but it's not a rule.
Mhm.
Makes sense. We've done some fanfic here that I've written.
Ooh,
What are your feelings on fanfic? Because I felt
Yeah,
we were doing it
first.
and I was excited, and then I was
yeah,
like,
have at it.
it's like George Martin talks about not, I read his Hollywood Reporter article,
Oh,
and he
I
talks
didn't.
about how they're his like kids and nobody should touch them. And then I was like, oh shit, maybe Pierce feels that way about his characters.
He
I
said
shouldn't.
that?
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was
Uh,
more about if he dies and nobody will be allowed to finish it, but it wasn't
Yeah.
about
Oh,
fanfic.
yeah, no, I
But
agree. I don't think anyone should I think that the arrogance to presume to raise your hand for that,
mm.
Mm.
you should be slapped. Um, I think that
Multiple times.
I think that is fundamentally disrespectful.
Yeah.
I would prefer never to have the next 2 books and someone else do them. That's my
Mhm.
belief on it.
I agree.
Yeah.
But you're okay
And
with
I would say
fanfic.
that even if I wasn't
Yeah.
an author. Was that?
But
You're
fan
okay with
fiction.
fanfic.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Well, just imagine Cullen has written up and did a really cool Ragnar with his deep, warm,
Oh, yeah,
inviting
no.
voice. So
Well, no,
I
it stems
hear
from
it?
what you had said earlier about, or at some other interview, you had mentioned how like you just were wondering what was happening in Game of Thrones, like so you were like, I'm going to write the series,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
so I was wondering like, what was the conversation between Harnassus and Orion when they got the orders
Oh,
to send the
cool.
White Fleet, or like,
Yeah.
what's Ragnar doing in the ready room when all of a sudden he hears Darrow's voice
the
over the
alarms.
intercom? Like, what's he thinking?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I love
anyhow,
that. No,
just wanted to clear that with the
that's
man.
why
Yeah.
that's why I think that like a lot of times there are some times where I'm don't want to talk about I don't want to talk about aspects of Red Rising like the like the process and
Mm.
all that crap's not fun. I really love talking about the world and seeing how you guys see it. And
Mhm.
I don't know, I'm just at the end of it, like at the end of the day, like I built a fort in the woods and you guys are coming and playing in the fort with me. And if you guys
Yeah.
built a new parapet over there, I'm like, I want to see, like,
Let me in.
yeah,
Uh,
no, it's just like yeah, I just get so enthusiastic about it because it's like the stuff I like. So
Hell yeah.
That's a
I'd love to
relief.
hear your
That's a
take.
relief. And my last one for you is, what are you reading right now? And do
Mm.
you have any, my brother started, he doesn't read a lot of history, and he found it a little difficult to get into the swing of like names
Oh,
and where
yeah.
things are leading and stuff like that. What do you recommend for history books for people to kind of get the sense of what you're doing? And then what are you personally
Rubicon.
reading?
Rubicon, Tom
Tom
Holland.
Holland. Yep.
I think it is the best. It is the most digestible, but also detailed and comprehensive. But he does good narrative throughout. It's totally digestible. Someone who's a alien to Roman history. And Tom Holland does an amazing job amazing job at making it palatable without talking down.
Yep.
I really think the world of that guy.
Yeah. Persian
His
Fire
work.
is one of my top 5 all time.
So
It's
darn good. So darn good. I love that book. Stephen Pressfield, I think that history courses are fucked up and we are learning not to. It's kind of, I think history courses often make the same mistake that I was accusing a lot of big fantasy TV shows they're making.
Mhm.
And I think that they're trying to get us to cognitively comprehend important like just dates and stuff and none of that matters unless you have a connection to it. I think that every
Yep.
history
Mhm.
course should start with a historical fiction,
Oh,
one
that's a
book
hell
set
of
in
an
that
idea,
period.
yeah.
Like you're doing colonial history, do a Johnny Tremaine book.
Yep.
Because as soon as you do that, and if it connects to the character, the brain starts doing what you do. You're populating the gaps. You're thinking about the character, what he's up to and doing based on what you know of the world. So then when you learn about, I don't know, the Battle of the Bullpens or like, Bunker Hill or something, you're kind of seeing it like through how it would affect people. And you're seeing it because you're not just engaged on your logic, your emotions engaged and you're empathizing. And I think that allows us to really, really like put ourselves in that situation. And we have this thing called like modernity bias, right? Where, now these fools out there are saying, really believe that aliens created the pyramids because because they can't grasp that humans were that sophisticated. It can't have happened. So the fault can't be with their imagination. And I think that it has to do with a modernity bias and thinking that people in the past were dumber than us, when in fact most of the people in the past would walk circles around us with basic competency, because they had to be Swiss Army knives of people, and they're doing it with fucking like -5 or -9 vision. You know what I mean? I think I would have been a great soldier in a lot of ways, like in Macedon army and stuff. But I have fucking bad eyesight. Like, would I have just? Is that a product of kind of selection based on us having the ability to fix that, and I wouldn't have had it? Maybe, or maybe just 20% of the population was just fucked.
Yeah, from the jump.
Right. And so I just think that we have this modernity bias. And like, if you see colorized World War II footage, all of a sudden it seems way less like magical.
or distant. That's the big thing, is that we have
Distant
this
sanitizes.
It's yeah, exactly. And it's a failure of imagination that it is the biggest problem with history being taught. But I think that's a brilliant idea.
Failure of imagination, and like an incredible misunderstanding of your own abilities.
100%. Chris, now it's your time to shine. You've got questions. Please ask them.
I'll be quick. Much like Cullen wants to justify his quote theories here, I have one on Ragnar. So we just covered Blood Brothers, and as a tattooed person myself, I was wondering, is the order of his mother, sister, and father tattoos going down to his feet, is that intentional, or am I just reading way too far into that?
It's intentional, yeah. So they'd be building a power column or story, kind of like the Mongolian spirit banners. They had the horse, the manes of each of their best horses, and I think for them, for Ragnar, it's like the forces that influenced it.
Right.
Yeah.
Cool. All right, and then one of my shticks is doing alternate chapter titles, so I just wanted to pitch my Red God alternate titles here.
Yeah.
If you want to use one, we'll clip it so no one knows it's a leak. So we're big Sagan heads here, so Red Dot is my first one.
Red Dot?
Yeah, off of Blue Dot. And then Jupiter Descending, in honor of the sci-fi movie Jupiter Ascending, to tie into the end of Lightbringer. Yeah. So that's what I got for you.
I was so concerned because I know how much they loved Neuromancer, and I saw The Matrix. I was really worried. Jupiter Ascending came out, and then I watched it, and I was like, oh, never mind.
You're good. You're good.
Oh, man. Yeah, that was there's so many things that just I can see how it seemed cool.
Yeah. It's a fever dream.
I just got just quick little random ones, but if you could go back throughout the series, swap out character-wise, and actually have them accept the Rising, the Suns or Darrow.
Not this question.
Have you gotten it before? Because then I'll let it.
No. I've gotten this flavor, and but keep going. So who would I put on Darrow's side?
Yes.
An opportunity.
Yeah. Who would change? It's Tactus.
I would want Tactus.
So this is a long debate that we've had, is actually between Tactus and Lorne.
Oh, no, but Lorne fundamentally wouldn't. He couldn't, Tactus could have, would have. Lorne was too baked. Lorne was too baked,
Okay.
Have you ever seen an old man change his stripes like that? You know what I mean?
What did I...
Breaks my heart, man. Breaks my heart.
I've been arguing against that,
and to hear it from your mouth, from God's ears, or from God's lips to my ears, that's brutal.
Rommel was a great man who killed a lot of Allied soldiers.
Yeah.
True.
And I look at it kind of from that prism.
Brutal.
They don't have to be on your side to have dignity, and they don't have to be good to have dignity. And I think Lorne had dignity, but he wasn't morally good.
I mean, Romulus Al Ra is like the pinnacle of that, I think.
I'd argue he's a way better person than Lorne is.
For sure.
The problem is Lorne is was complicit in so much.
Yes.
Damn it! I'm looking
I
at.
always
his
tried to like
fucking,
shun
you
that
know,
aside.
I'm looking at his portrait and weeping myself to bed here. That's
Yeah,
brutal.
guys, but think about the historical figures you admire.
True.
Few George Washingtons, and George Washington wasn't really exceptional at violence.
No,
you know?
he was
true.
a very
You know,
bad battlefield tactician.
Yes.
like it comes to Sherman, like that is a scary customer. Ant is two of the big inspirations for characters.
Okay.
Like Darrow is a lot of Ulysses S. Grant.
I can
Okay.
totally see that.
Not in terms of his personality, but in terms of his
generalship.
how he plays it. Yeah.
And please tell me that we don't have the same final act. I just finished Grant's memoirs, and I mean that last is brutal.
He's going searching. He's going searching.
Oh, these?
Oh, holy shit!
Oh, these?
Well then.
Well, let's hope that
No, I haven't read that.
Few
makes
thousand
total
times.
sense. We don't. Again, we want to be respectful of your time. We really appreciate you doing this.
I do too, because I got to work some, and I would just keep talking because this is.
Well,
Where do
we've
y'all
got
live?
Awesome.
one last thing. We didn't want to do
New
much Red
England.
God because we know you're working on it, and we
Was
first
it?
off the top, take your fucking time, man.
Thank
you
you.
don't owe us anything. Take your
Thank you.
fucking time. Do it when
Yeah.
you're ready. But
Yeah.
we have our ideas of Red God's ending. We want to pitch to you. Chris,
Okay.
go ahead.
All right, so Lysander sees thousands of versions of the future and throws himself into a pit of oracles. He lives for 10,000 years as a human oracle hybrid with hundreds of Cassius Colas by his side.
Lysander Alado.
It's Newhart. AI generated Bob Newhart wakes up and realizes it was all a dream.
I did that. I said a bike like a couple of years ago. I said a bike messenger, a Portland bike messenger, got hit. From a road diet, he got T-boned and wakes up, and Darrow's just a Uber Eats delivery driver.
Chuck, go ahead.
I mean,
That almost kind of leads into mine. Mine was just, it was all a gold simulation running through doomsday scenarios of how to prevent their future downfall. And it's like the sovereign in her chair was the simulation device. And she
that's
just
pretty
wakes
brutal.
up. Yeah. Yeah, well,
guys
you
wanna
can see
hate
why
me.
I love Dark Age.
You guys want to hate me? Yeah.
No.
Could you imagine the betrayal?
Oh
Like,
my God.
That's a contract betrayal. You know what I mean? Like, I should be. No, I'm not gonna. No.
I was gonna say, don't put that out there.
I would never.
No.
I would never.
I almost had him.
All right.
No.
Well, we truly do appreciate your time, and again, take your time
So
with
fun,
Red
guys.
God, man. We can't wait to
This-
can't wait to dive in.
Yeah, well, this was straight up some of the best time I've had on the internet in a while. So thank you.
All right.
Hell
Thank
yeah.
you
And
very
that's
much.
saying
Love
something.
it. I love it.